So one of the specific things I wanted to fix with the second edition is removing some ambiguities around the types of bad data. This is where it's currently at. Just wanted to share it with you. So kind of six big categories, and they fall into two different conceptual clusters. So the first is bad data versus via bias. This is going to feel pretty familiar to classic mom test stuff. Your compliments, ideas, and hypotheticals. I think it is, I think you should, I think I would. Each of which has kind of a tool within the conversation for dealing with it. Compliments was a tricky one to choose the word for, honestly, because in one sense, criticisms can behave the same way as compliments. But on the other hand, criticisms often hide industry expertise or buying criteria or feature requests or other invisible signals underneath them in a way that compliments tend not to. So criticisms are kind of a combined case where criticisms can include all of them. And when you get a criticism, you're sort of like, what type of criticism is this? And you ask some clarifying questions. It goes, oh, okay. This criticism is functionally just someone's opinion, so I can treat it like a compliment, or like, oh, this criticism or critique is because this person has deep industry expertise and they're giving me some ideas that are really grounded in stuff that I need to know about. Okay, let me dig out those industry secrets, etc. So critiques are kind of have been separated away from compliments, and these are the base three. And then the other category is what I want to call bad data by omission, where what you're hearing is not inherently biased, but it is in some way insufficient for what you're trying to achieve with your business, the decision you're trying to make about your strategy or your product. So someone's giving you good insights about something that's not strategically important or relevant. Obviously, that's a problem. Unimportant, off topic, whatever. And then the other two are partial good answers. It's almost good data. Like when someone gives you a generalization, I never do this. I usually do this. There's very often a real concrete story with real concrete signal buried underneath that generalization, both the stories about when they followed their generalization and about the edge cases and exceptions where they deviate from it. There's massive value there. The generalization as an answer has just kind of stopped short. With a couple follow-ups to get them to keep going, you can get into the concrete bits beneath it and figure out exactly what the real signal, the good data is, and then make your own decision. So like when you hear a compliment, you try to ignore it and move back to a good question. When you hear a generalization, you try to keep them talking and get them more specific and concrete. So it's a different approach. And early endings are something I didn't really talk about before. This got made concrete for me by Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference. He's the lead FBI hostage negotiator. And it's amazing how much his hostage negotiation process revolves around just keeping the other person talking in a way that they feel comfortable with, on the basis that that allows Chris or the hostage negotiator to really understand their worldview, right? Sounds familiar, very mom testy. And then talk to them in a way that's going to resonate, to get what both sides will accept as a reasonable outcome. He calls it tactical empathy. But for our purposes, what really matters here about the early endings is that Voss gives these two tools, mirroring and labeling. And they're just lovely. And I've been using them for the last few years, and they are incredibly effective in a customer development context. So mirroring is basically just repeating what they said. So someone goes, we've been doing it this way and that way, but it hasn't always been perfect. That's a partial answer. Like you want to know more. In what ways is it not perfect? All you have to do is mirroring. You just repeat the last few words, So they say, blah, 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 it's not always perfect. You go, it's not always perfect. And they go, yeah, it's not always perfect. I mean, sometimes this happens or this happens. And it kind of gives them permission to continue. And they just tell you the rest of the story that they'd previously kind of cut themselves off of because they felt like they were talking too long or being rude. And then the other version is also from Chris is labeling. I was doing stuff like this in my original Custev toolkit, but it was nowhere near as precise and nowhere near as effective as what Chris described. So I decided, credit where credit's due. Let's just use the tools that work for the FBI. They're such dumb tools. It's absurd that they work. Chris says the same thing in his book. It's like absurd that such a simple tool works so well for the FBI that they rely on it so heavily. And I can tell you, it works equally well in Custev. So, those are a great tool to have in your toolkit. Between that, you've got the classic mom test to deal with the compliments, ideas, and hypotheticals. You've got labeling and mirroring to deal with the early endings. You've got searching for edge cases and examples to deal with generalizations. And for off topic, it's reset and refocus, which is a standard mom test tool. It's like you interrupt them, but then you immediately bring the focus of the conversation back onto them. So these are kind of in the moment. Obviously, preparing is important. If you don't know what you're trying to learn, you're not going to learn it. But assuming you've done your preparation before the meeting, once you're actually in it, all you really need to know how to do is these 6 things. And just mixing and matching them, you can deal with anything that comes up. So, this is the complete toolkit. The first half of this is up in the manuscript at the moment. The second half of it will be up by end of week. And yeah, as you dig into that, I would love to hear your thoughts, or let me know directly here in the video. And yeah, we'll keep dialing this in so it can get as useful as possible. Thanks.